This Baseball America list, look, to us, that have been in the business for so long, Baseball America in many ways is still sort of the Bible, right?
It is.
I mean, it is a well thought of, a very credible source for things. So when they put out a list
I'm the Rangers guy, so it's incredibly credible. Yeah,
that's. Oh, are you really?
Yeah, but not on the prospects. Not on the prospects.
Okay,
just the.
But when they have Rangers content, you write it.
I do.
Well, look at there.
Yeah, it's true. I've been doing it. 12, 14, 15 years. It's been a long time.
Yeah. And so you didn't have a say in their prospects. However, they're well represented. Are the Rangers in the top 100 prospects? It's the farm system is healthy. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. They haven't released their top 100 prospects yet. But at last count, the Rangers, I believe, had 3, Rocker, Walcott, and Rosario in the top 10. The new top 10 in the system that was released Tuesday, I think. Those guys are the first 3. In the top 10, Rocker first, Sebastian Walcott, and then Alejandro Rosario. Really a pitching heavy group. Emiliano Teodo, Winston Santos round out the top 5. Malcolm Moore, the first round pick, is in there at 6th. And then their names, they're not going to be any surprise. Oh, hey, that guy jumped up. I guess the ones, if you want to have a surprise, is Yolfran Castillo, who was signed in last year's international class, had a remarkable season in the Dominican. He hit almost 500, was promoted to the States, and did a really, really nice job in the Arizona Complex League. So this is a guy that can hit a little bit. Obviously, he's a teenager. He's
what was that name
17,
again, Jeff?
Yolfran Castillo.
Yolfran Castillo.
Yeah. Alejandro Rosario, who was the Rangers minor league player of the year.
Yeah,
he checks in at 10. So Jack Leiter's in there, hasn't lost his prospect status yet. So and Rocker and Leiter are going to graduate. These systems, these rankings always fluctuate based on who graduates, and once they hit their rookie limits, and are no longer rookies. That's when they fall off of the lists. So the Rangers will have a couple of those this year. But that's why Langford and Carter were in the top 10 in baseball last year.
Yeah.
And that's why the Rangers system, I think, was 3rd last year. So it's but then all of a sudden they went down to 24. And then you had a guy like Rosario and Castillo who really performed. And so the Rangers jump back up. So they're kind of middle of the road right now.
Where are they right now?
Well, I think they're in the teens. They're back into the teens. But, the draft classes, Dylan Dreiling, he's the one guy left out. He's number 9. He was the 2nd-round draft pick. So, a strong international signing. Like if the Rangers are fortunate enough to sign Roki Sasaki, he's going to be the top prospect in the game.
Yep.
So the Rangers will skyrocket until May when he hits his rookie innings threshold and then he graduates. But it's interesting how they do it. A lot of it is riding the hot hand. Rosario, who was the Rangers, I think 5th round pick in 23. You look at his college numbers at Miami, and they weren't good. He had a 6 ERA for his career in college. He was a really good high school prospect. Didn't sign, went to college. It was during COVID. He was eligible for the COVID draft. It was only 5 rounds. So he was really, really dug into Miami, where he's from. And then this season that he had really kind of came out of nowhere. But the Rangers kind of felt like it was possible. What they did, and they did it with a lot of these lower level guys, is they stripped away all the stuff they don't do well. So if he was flirting with a changeup, but it was terrible, well, changeup's gone. Work on your strengths. And so, it's upper 90s, 100-mile-per-hour velocity. It's a really good split, I believe, is what he throws for a secondary pitch. So focus on that. He throws strikes like a mother. I mean, he does not walk guys, and yet he doesn't get doesn't give up a lot of hard contact. That's something that can plague a strike thrower. Greg Maddux never threw a no-hitter because he was always in the strike zone.
Yep.
I watched him pitch a one-hitter once, and the one hit, I think, was a Jeff Bagwell homer. Just because just you're around the plate, and But anyway, the point is that Rosario, he could be a real fixture for the next couple of years if he can repeat what he did this year. Sebastian Walcott, on the not to get away from Baseball America, but Jim Callis, who used to work for Baseball America, he's now at MLB Pipeline. John Moore and I had him on the weekly show last week, and we went over some of these guys. And he really put things in perspective on Sebastian Walcott. Sebastian Walcott is 18. Last year he turned 18 in March, so he's a pretty young 18, especially when the season started. And he went out there and had a fantastic season at High A. And basically what Jim said was, if Sebastian Walcott were draft eligible, he'd probably be the number one draft prospect because of his age. A high school guy.
Yeah.
Basically for you could say his senior year of high school, or maybe his first year of college. But let's say his senior year of high school, he was one of the best players in High A.
Because he was 18 last year.
He was 18 last year.
Senior
and
year.
So, you're talking about we talked about the draft lottery and all that stuff with Jim. And that's kind of what he came to. It's like Ethan Holiday, who's the latest of the Holidays to be a prospect. He's probably the top prospect in the draft. What Jim is saying is that Sebastian Walcott, were he draft eligible, would be the number one pick.
Wow.
I mean, it's really remarkable
nice
how
to have
good
that
he
in
is.
your organization. Yeah,
exactly.
And be number 2, by the way.
Yeah.
And Malcolm Moore is interesting to me. And again, this is a guy that went to college.
Correct.
He's a catcher, which is a position that takes a while to develop. But the fact that he ranks as highly on the list as he does says to me that, in basically half of a season right after he was drafted, that he must have developed fairly well, fairly quickly.
Yeah, he didn't post great numbers. He got his first home run out of the way. There was some talk during the draft leading up to it, and even after he was selected, if he was going to stick at catcher, and that's really something that hounded him in high school. Would he play first base? Would he catch? And we've asked that to Kip Fagg, who's the Rangers' amateur scouting director. He's like, we wouldn't have drafted him if we didn't think he could catch.
He needs to catch.
So they are committed to him catching and getting better. I think he started to see the differences between even at a really good, historically good program like Stanford.
Yeah.
Just the difference in technique and how to be a professional catcher. And you're right, it does take a little bit longer, but they pushed him to High A. He did okay. He got his feet wet, got a good foundation in place. And so I'd imagine he's back at Hickory to start 25. But there is a gap. There's the two major league catchers. Then there's Sam Huff, and his future is very, very cloudy.
Yeah.
So then who is the next guy? Well, they're going to sign some veteran guys. Like they've apparently reached an agreement on Tucker Barnhart, who's a hell of a defensive catcher.
Yep.
But can't hit his weight. But so you're going to see some guys like that at AAA. Matt Watley is still in the organization. They've re-signed Cooper Johnson, who was at AA and had a nice year. But there's just this gap of who's the next guy? Well, it's Malcolm Moore, but it's going to take at least a couple of years.
Yeah, and but the nice thing is the fact that he was a college player,
right?
Accelerates it some, right? It's
for sure.
I mean, a 17-year-old like Sebastian Walcott, you just have to let the kid grow up.
Yeah.
This kid's more grown up, and so he, that may help accelerate it. Then, of course, the fact that he's a catcher slows it back down because it's a very difficult position to learn, especially to do it at the major league level.
And really, you want offense from your catcher. You wish every catcher was Salvador Perez, but the number one job of a catcher is to navigate the pitching staff, navigate a ball game, and call the right game. Receiving, sure, and blocking balls, all of that, but to think that just because a guy's going to hit, he's going to go right to the major leagues. It's just not the case. And so it'll again, depending on how fast of a learner, how coachable he is, but he's going to get a chance. And but again, it's going to be late 26 at the earliest. I'd think would be when he's in the major leagues.
Yeah, and then again, that's the patience that fans have to have. That's the patience that organizations have to have, right? And if you rush these guys, and it's happened, and they've still made it, but the classic example of a guy who was rushed and who hasn't quite tapped the full potential yet is Leote.
Sure.
I mean, they brought him up in 2020 way ahead of schedule based on the situation that was happening with COVID and all that other stuff. Yeah. And again, immediately you saw his athletic ability and you saw his potential. But he hasn't. Yeah. And we talked to Boch about him when we saw him at the winter meetings.
Sure.
And he knows this guy has a really high upside. And I think the Rangers will do what it takes, and they'll have the patience to do it. It's harder, though, to do that, to learn that at the major league level.
Yeah, well, Sam Huff is in the same situation because he got called up that season as well. And, the problem with doing that with Sam is it started his clock. And so, and he's out of options, and really, he was hurt the next year. And I don't even think he played in the majors in 21 because of injury. It just, that COVID thing with the roster size limited, no minor league, so you had to have a camp where they were, worked out but away from the major league team. It was just kind of was a disservice to a lot of these guys. It really was. And I mean, you mentioned right off the bat, Leote is number one. Sam's probably number two, or 1A and 1B scenario, because those guys were top prospects. Yeah, you see Sam Huff hit a ball, and he might have the best power in the whole organization, including the major leaguers, and just hasn't had a chance to make it happen yet.
No, it's the sad because we just haven't seen Sam display that power other than in BP at the major league level yet. So fingers crossed that he gets those opportunities and has a chance to wow us. He'll be a late bloomer. We had Nelly Cruz. We haven't shown the Nelly Cruz interview yet. We will, but Nelly was a late bloomer.
The ultimate late bloomer.
Yeah. Fangraphs keeps us entertained, obviously, a lot, and they came up with this list of the 2025 top 100 players. Jeff has not seen this yet, and so we'll just go through some of this stuff with him. And Jeff, so who would you think the number one player is that they're projecting will be for 2025?
Overall?
Yep.
I'd say Ohtani.
Yeah. Of course,
okay.
Yeah. Shohei Ohtani. And then who would you think number two would be?
Aaron Judge?
Yeah, or Soto, right? One of those two.
Yeah,
they have Gunnar Henderson.
Well, that's interesting.
I thought that was very interesting. Aaron Judge is third. They have another guy who was in the hunt for the MVP award
Bobby
this
Witt
year as the fourth best player, Bobby Witt Jr. from North Texas, and of course the Kansas City Royals. And then Soto is fifth. What? The guy who just signed the $765 million contract, who many believe, those who watch him, those who, played this game believe this is the best hitter in the game. But I don't know. Fangraphs did not reveal what all went into their rankings. Mm-hmm. Maybe his sometimes defensive deficiencies bring him down a little.
Yeah, maybe.
All the way down to fifth. That's not too bad. I thought this was a very interesting choice at 6. A guy who was in the battle for Rookie of the Year. And Cy Young. In the National League.
Paul Skeens.
Yeah, Skeens.
All right.
And
Took me a minute.
It seems high, right? It seems high for me that Paul Skeens, as good as he was this past year, he's a rookie. Anything he's done once in a row, but he's in at number 6. All right, I'm not going to go through that whole list. I'm going to next get to who the Rangers are that represent this list, and there are 4 Rangers.
4 Rangers
on the list.
Okay.
Who do you think the highest ranking Ranger is? And again, it's an apples and oranges list. You got pitchers and position players on the list.
Well, I would go with Corey Seager.
It's a good guess, but he's not the highest. And frankly, we're about to get to Corey because I think he's too low on this list. But higher than Corey at number 12, the first Ranger on the list is Jacob deGrom.
Wow,
right?
That's a high ranking for a guy who hasn't pitched for a while.
Yeah, basically hasn't pitched in almost 2 years by the time we get to opening day.
Well, he's great. He's great. He could be top 5. He could be over Paul Skeens.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And then you go down to number 19, and you get to Corey Seager.
19.
Yes. So let's then just go back over some of the names that are ahead of Corey Seager on this list, and I'll try to keep it to position players. So right above him at 18 is Kyle Tucker. Again, love Kyle Tucker, but I don't know if he's ever had the consistency or he's the battler in the box and the guy that, I guess he does strike fear in opposing pitchers.
He steals bases and he's a really good defensive player.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
so maybe.
True. So you've got also above him Francisco Lindor at 14. This is an interesting one. Cal Raleigh at 13. Better than Corey Seager? Come on.
Yeah.
And that's the highest ranking Mariners
player
one. As well.
Is that the highest ranked catcher?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I don't even think Salvi makes this list, amazingly, because I know he's getting old, but how's Salvador Perez not on this list? I don't think he is. Also ahead of him, Yordan Alvarez. He's not quite top 10. He's in the 11 spot. He's the highest ranking Astro on the list. I'd buy that. I'd probably buy that.
He's a hell of a hitter.
He really is. Mookie Betts is the 10th best player on this list. And then, again, based on much shorter span and based on last year, I'm not sure I agree that 9 should be over this list. And I lied about who the highest Mariner was.
Oh, Julio Rodriguez?
Because Julio Rodriguez is at 9. Yeah.
Very inconsistent.
Yeah, he didn't have a very good year.
Yeah.
He's got great potential, but anyway, they've got him at number 9. So I don't know. I think Corey Seager at 19 is too low. The next Ranger you get to isn't until 47. And at 43. And at 43, you'll find Marcus Semien.
Okay.
And I like that. It's an Iron Man. It's a guy who's great defensively. It's a guy who plays every day. It's a guy who did have a down year offensively, but he hasn't had many, right? Look at the big body of work, and you feel like Marcus Semien will rebound from that.
I agree that Marcus had a bad year, and he's usually followed up a down year with a banner year.
Yeah. And then this is a surprise but a pleasant one. Also on this list, the 4th Ranger on the list, coming in at number 76 on the Fangraphs list of the top 100 players for 2025, Wyatt Langford.
That's a good one.
It is. It's a guy who's had pretty much one great month in the major leagues. Yeah. But everybody knows what they believe they know, and I think September showed what this guy can do.
He was the AL Player of the Month.
Yep.
Ahead of Aaron Judge, who had an awesome month.
Who had a good month. Yeah. That's right.
So I'll say this on Skeens. I think that's not a bad place for him. I was watching some of it. I don't know if it was a video or what. It's just filthy stuff. And Jim, going back to the Jim Callis episode I keep referencing, he said Paul Skeens is the best pitcher he's ever seen.
Really?
Ever.
Wow.
Best pitching prospect he's ever seen. And Jim said if somebody said I have to pick one guy to win a game, he said he would pick Paul Skeens.
Wow.
Yeah. And, an interesting thing about Paul Skeens, he was a really good catcher in college at Air Force. He hit 25 home runs one year.
Wow.
And I the ball travels at an Air Force because it's Colorado Springs. But I have a Ranger scout who said that Paul Skeens would have been a first rounder as a catcher.
Jeez.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
When
did he switch to pitching?
Well, when he got to LSU, they pretty much just were like pitching only.
Okay.
Yeah, but he
didn't switch till he transferred.
He always wanted to hit and all that stuff, but
wow.
They knew what they had, and I think he eventually realized what he had. He's so big. My God, he's a big man.
Yeah.
And I don't want to fear the worst, but something may ultimately end up giving, unless he's a freak like Nolan Ryan.
Right. I mean,
but shoot, he's just so big.
History
strong.
tells us that this completely unnatural thing called throwing a baseball at 100 miles an hour, it's so ridiculously hard on the body, and especially in this day and age when you are so focused on that spin too, right? That spin rate.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just an unnatural movement for the body.
Yeah, and and when he got to LSU, I think they tweaked his slider, and that's kind of what started to get him over the top. You know, you come up with these designer pitches, and Keith Meister, we'll talk about it openly. You know, he does not care for the sweeper,
right? And
he doesn't like the power changeup. He says those are elbow wreckers, and I mean, he's the guy. You know, now he and Neil Elatrach out there in L.A. Those are the two guys who are rebuilding the most elbows. And you know, there were Tyler Mahle when he pitched for the Twins. Meister did his elbow.
Oh yeah,
you know,
yeah.
Anybody who gets hurt basically comes into to Arlington and gets their work done by Keith. And he's also really good with the shoulder, the subscapularis and the teres major and all that junk. He's one of the leaders on that. Even NFL people, Brock Purdy. Keith Meister did Brock Purdy's elbow, the 49ers quarterback.
That's the thing. I mean, my son actually had an ACL surgery done by Brock Purdy when he was in high school.
By Keith.
And by what did I say?
By Brock Purdy.
How about Keith Meister?
Flew him up
Purdy's amazing.
Flew him up to Ames.
Yeah, Purdy's amazing. He's a quarterback and he can cut your elbow or your knee. So Keith Meister did my son's knee surgery, and when he had to go through rehab, which is extensive, months after months on the knee, he was always seeing baseball play.
Oh yeah,
pro baseball.
Yeah.
Pittsburgh Pirate over here, Minnesota Twin over there. You know, I mean, and I'm like, who'd you see in there today? And of course, he was there at the same time Josh Hamilton was.
Yeah,
doing various rehab things. So my son and Josh became buddies. So such as that was, and it's what it's worth.
Yeah, when I rehabbed my back at Keith's place, and Keith actually. I thought I had a bad hip injury, and Keith was the one who was like, I think this is your back. So he recommended me to Drew Dossett, who's a leading back guy in the area in the NFL. And but I did my rehab at TMI, and Martin Perez had just had Tommy John.
So he was there.
They brought in another guy who had Tommy John. Matt Harrison was in there for his back deal. So I saw a lot of Rangers guys. Martin Perez laughed at me one time because I was on the machine with a stability ball and one leg up, and it was a new move, and so I kind of slipped a little bit, and he started laughing, and he's over there with a 1 pound weight. I went, shut up, man, you're lifting 1 pound right now.
What are you doing?
Give me a break.
Hey, some of the exercises they come up with in that torture chamber are unbelievable. A couple other quick notes here. 2 players on the list that don't have teams affiliated with them. Alex Bregman is the 36th player on the list, and Corbin Burns is number 38. I did the math, and the team with the most prospects most top on the 100 top 100 list, Houston Astros.
Interesting.
They have 7 on the list. Yeah. And then the Dodgers and Yankees each have 6, and the Washington Nationals, I believe, are the only team with 1. There are 3 teams that have no players on this list. Not Oakland, but the Athletics.
I'm going to call them Oakland.
Okay, Oakland Athletics, and the not surprisingly, the Chicago White Sox and the Colorado Rockies.
Yeah,
3 teams.
And
makes sense. Yeah, makes sense. All 3 of them.
Yeah.
So nobody on the top 100 list, but found it fun, found it interesting. One of the things that galled me a little bit too, and I think I heard the bell over. Did I hear the bell?
You heard the bell.
I heard the bell. Okay, one last thing on this. Where is he? Mike Trout. Where do you think Mike Trout would be? Top 100 players, Mike Trout. We just had Ron Washington on the show saying he's better than 80% of the players in the league.
Well, that's low too.
Yeah, and that's low. So he better be 20 or higher, right? No, 56.
Not right,
kidding
baby.
Me?
Not right.
Are you kidding me? 56 for Mike Trout. So anyway, that's the top 100 in baseball, at least as Fangraphs believes.
We all silly like the mayor.